Hi, and welcome to the first episode of the Relationship Foodie cooking show, where we cook and connect in the kitchen to build and maintain a sizzling and passionate relationship. Since this is the first episode, I presume it's going to be a little bit messy, but please bear with us while we work out those kinks. Today we're going to be making cheesy zucchini tots, and we're going to be talking about showing up with purpose in your relationship. My name is Azure, and I am the Relationship Foodie. And while I don't have classical cooking experience, I was a foodie before it was even cool. And food brings us together in such a beautiful and magical way. So I figured, why not bring the comfort and connection of food together with something that I am an expert in, building and maintaining a delicious relationship. So I'd really love it if you would subscribe and join me while I bring you bite-sized relationship tips, delicious recipes, and everything that will leave you wanting more. What could be better? All right, let's get cooking. Here's a quick shot of the ingredients you're going to need today. If you'd like a full list, they will be in the show notes. We'll start by grating the zucchini. So you're going to want to chop off one of the ends. I think it makes it a little bit easier. And then we'll take our box grater on this cheese grater setting, and we'll just start grating it. I like to leave this little nub on here because then when I get to the end, I can just hold it by that nub and I don't waste as much. All right, now that those are all grated, what we're going to do is put them into a sieve on top of a bowl, and I'm going to go ahead and salt them so that a lot of the water will drain out. This is a really important step because we want to make sure that when we're baking them, the water doesn't come out at that time, because then they're not going to be anything like a tot. So we'll take that, put that into the sieve, and then you just take some salt and sprinkle it around and mix that up. And you're going to want to let these set for about 2 hours so that a lot of the moisture gets drawn out. All right, let's wash our hands. All right, while that's resting, let's take a break and talk about our relationship topic for the day. So the topic is showing up with purpose in your relationship. And I wanted to take a couple minutes first, though, to talk about any relationship topic that we discuss on this show is meant to help you and your partner grow a beautiful, delicious relationship. So I just want you to keep that in mind, that even though some of it may be a little hard to think about or talk about, we are just talking about it so that you can be a better you and bring that to your relationship. And it's so important to be able to decide how you're going to show up in every moment of your life. And a lot of us are just so strung out, and we are just, getting through the day, and we don't make those conscious efforts of how we're going to show up in every moment. And that's what I'm here to help you to do today. All right, it's been a couple of hours, so we're going to go ahead and preheat our oven to 375 degrees. And then what we're going to do is go ahead and squeeze this zucchini out. So we've been letting it set and we've been letting it drain, and it's drained a lot of water, but we really just need to get the rest of that water out. And we're going to squeeze it pretty hard until we kind of get what we think is most of the water out. And then we're going to put it in our bowl. And as you can see, there's a ton of water in here from that couple of hours and squeezing it all out. I'm going to go ahead and rinse my hands and rinse this bowl out so you can see what I'm doing. So before we mix the batter, I wanted to reiterate, the one person we have control over in this life is ourselves. And I know that a lot of times in our relationships, we reach the cycle of frustration because we're scurrying around life and we feel like we're giving our absolute best to the relationship at the time. And, so then it just stands to reason that anything that goes wrong is your partner's fault, right? So if you're doing everything you possibly can, then anything that goes wrong, you feel like it's just not on you. And then there's a vicious cycle that starts to occur where you start thinking that you're in the right and your partner's in the wrong, and you enter every instance of interaction with those assumptions in the back of your head. And so what I want you to start doing is thinking about, showing up with intention. And so in the next segment, I'm going to teach you exactly the questions to ask yourself so that you're sure that you can take just a moment before you enter into an interaction and go in there with intention. Okay, before we continue on with our relationship conversation, let's go ahead and make this batter so we can get the tots right into the oven. I'm going to start by adding 2 beaten eggs. And since we salted the zucchini, I am not going to salt it at this point. And I'll show you what I do in a minute to test the taste of it. And then we're going to go ahead and add 2 tablespoons of olive oil. I'm using chili oil today just because I want them a little bit extra spicy. So it's like chili olive oil. And I add this in so that they kind of get brown. The cheese does some of that for you, but I like to have a little bit of extra in there. I'm going to add a lot of garlic powder. So today I'm using garlic powder. Sometimes I use fresh grated garlic, or sometimes I have them in the freezer and I use that. But today I'm using garlic powder. I like a lot because I like them to be cheesy, garlicky. It's so good. Some onion salt. And we'll have measurements down in the show notes for you. Some fresh cracked pepper. And some paprika just for some color. And I'm going to get that all mixed up really well. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to add the cheese. So what I have here today is a mixture of mild cheddar and pepper jack. And sometimes I'm feeling frisky and I buy a block of cheese and I grate it. Sometimes it's sharp cheddar. Today I bought the pre-grated stuff and I wanted some of that jalapeno jack flavor in there. So I went ahead and got that. So I'm going to dump that in. So we're going to mix this around and kind of get a sense of just how wet the batter ends up being with all of this. And then we're going to add our flour accordingly. Okay. Usually I have to add about 3/4 of a cup to a cup of flour, and I'm just going to do it a little bit at a time so that I can see, I'll know when the batter is the consistency that I want, and I'll show you guys what that looks like. So I'm going to add about half of it now. And we want it to be a little bit dry because when the cheese starts to melt and the zucchini starts to cook, we're going to get a little bit of moisture, and we want that flour there to soak it up. And a lot of times, so today I'm using all-purpose flour. I actually started making these zucchini tots with almond flour. And sometimes I use paleo flour. It just depends on what kind of mood I'm in. I'm using all-purpose flour here today because I figure that's what most people will probably use. But it's really good with like the almond flour, the alternative flours. So I would totally go there if you think that if that's in your wheelhouse and you don't do regular flour. So I'm going to add just a little bit more. And I actually think I might need the rest. So this was about a cup of flour. And today it just seems like, it's a little bit moist still in there. And I want to have some more flour to make it a little bit drier. This should do it. So this is about the consistency that I want right here. It's not too wet, not too dry, but it looks like it's going to hold up nicely in the oven. And so that's kind of what you're looking for right there. Okay, before we put them in the oven, what I like to do is test one out and see if the seasoning is right. It's an optional step, but I really like to just, throw a little scoop in a pan, a small pan, and fry it up and just make sure that it tastes okay. And while we're talking about that, you can go ahead and you can fry all of them. Obviously, fried is delicious, but we're going to be baking them today. The fried is just to taste how it tastes. Okay, so we have it to taste here, and I'm just going to, okay. I think the seasoning is perfect. But if it wasn't for any reason, this would be the time that you'd want to tweak any of the seasonings and add whatever you like more of and everything like that. So we'll go ahead and get these plated. All right, we're going to go ahead and put these on the pan. And I like to use an ice cream scoop. It's a little ice cream scoop. And I just kind of like put the stuff in there like that. And then I put it down on the pan. And you'll notice that I have some parchment paper here. And parchment paper is really good at being non-stick. And what I do is I spray the bottom of the pan before I put the parchment in, and that helps the parchment kind of stick down a little bit. But you don't actually have to spray the parchment because it's pretty good at being non-stick itself. So we'll get these. Okay, so as you can see, we have these on the pan and we are ready to get them in the oven. If you don't have a small ice cream scoop, you can use a couple of spoons. It really doesn't matter. Just be creative. You just want them to all kind of be the consistent size so they bake up at the same time. All right, sometimes I use little mini muffin tins for these as well. And it just makes it a little bit easier, but it's not required. So I would say whatever you have on hand is perfectly fine, but I just wanted to show you this as another option. Okay, while those are in the oven, I thought I'd whip up a quick sauce. We usually eat these tots without sauce, but I thought that maybe it would be delicious to have something on the side. So I wanted to make up some sriracha mayo. So it's just some mayonnaise, some sriracha. I put a little bit of honey, pepper, and apple cider vinegar in there to give it a little zing. And we'll mix it up, and it looks like this, and it should be really good for the tots. All right, so while those bake, let's finish up. So just to be clear, what do I mean when I say show up with purpose? And I think I've touched on it already before, but it is actually taking the steps to decide how you want to show up in every interaction. So what I do sometimes is I have a list of questions that I ask myself before I enter into a room, a text conversation, a phone call, and I ask myself, how do I want to show up in this interaction? And I also ask myself, what can I do in order to facilitate that being the desired outcome I want to have, right? So what can I do to facilitate feeling the way I want to feel at the end of this interaction? And then once the interaction is over, I have a little conversation with myself. It's not something you have to do with anybody else. And I just ask, did I act to the best of my ability in that moment? And sometimes that is, A plus, and sometimes that's D, right? But we just have to know that we did our best in that moment. And that's what any of us are trying to do, right? And then the last question I ask is, what else could I have done to make that just a little bit better? And so when we start taking accountability for ourselves and we have open, honest, and objective conversations with ourselves about our actions, our intentions, our assumptions, then we can start to just bring awareness to our own purpose and our own actions. And that's what this is all about. And so what I want to say here is that this isn't a time to beat yourself up. So I know a lot of us, when we talk to ourselves, we're not exactly the most positive, right? We don't talk to ourselves the way we would talk to someone else. And what I want you to keep in mind here is that all of these activities and all of these tips that I'm going to give you are meant to help you grow. And growth is a process. You have to practice. It's not perfect. It's messy along the way. And really, if you're just trying and practicing, then all you're going to do is get better. And so when you're having those open and honest conversations with yourself, do it in a curious way. Do it in a way to try to find understanding about yourself and about your actions, and maybe even the actions of your partner. And, you can come to them and to any interaction from a place of love and understanding and openness and curiosity. And those are the things that really make the partnership beautiful and delicious, right? Okay, it's been about 35 minutes, and the tots are finally out of the oven. They're nice and golden brown, as you can see. And we're just gonna go ahead and plate them up. It's kind of maybe a little bit easier to do it with your hands, but I have this here just in case. And see how this parchment paper, it's so great. I think parchment is something that's really underutilized. I forget to use it sometimes too. I just default to foil, but it's so great because it's non-stick and they come up so easily. Okay. All right, here they are all plated up and with our quick and easy sauce here. And let's see how they taste. I'm sure you can hear the crunching. It's so yummy and crunchy and cheesy. I just love cheese so much. I hope you really enjoyed making these with me, and I hope you'll make them again sometime soon. And I really hope that you got something out of showing up in your relationship with purpose and some takeaway tips that you can implement as soon as today or tomorrow. And if you wouldn't mind subscribing to my channel below, I would greatly appreciate it so that so many more people like you can get this information. And if you're ever wondering how to connect a little bit deeper with me, you can connect through my show notes. I'll have links to my book, I have a relationship app, and any other items that I have coming up. They'll be in the show notes. So please visit those for any more information. Take care, and I wish you a delicious relationship. Until next time.